If you're like me, if you're considering making a big decision that affects my family or my finances, I like to have everything planned out in my head before it happens. So I want to know what's going on in the front end. Do I have everything planned correctly there? Do I have everything planned correctly in the middle and at the end? How am I going to be feeling through each step? Well, selling a house is one of those big decisions. So I'm going to do a series, and by the way, my name is LeAnne Carswell. I own the Expert Real Estate Team. I've been a realtor and broker for 25 years. So I thought I would answer some questions that will hopefully help you if you're thinking about selling your home. Some of the questions we're going to be going over is, how do I sell my home? Do I do it myself? Do I hire a realtor? Do I sell it to an iBuyer? That's a whole new thing. What do I have to do to get the house ready to sell? Do I have to do any repairs? What should I ask for my home? What does the listing contract look like? What does the buyer contract look like? What are contingencies? Christmas is coming up. Should I put my home for sale during Christmas? So we've got a lot of questions that we'll unpack in this series, and I hope that you will find it beneficial. Hey, LeAnne here with the Expert Real Estate Team. So thank you for joining in to episode 4 of how to sell your home. And I thought I'd switch to sharing my screen for this one, because some people like to know what the listing contract looks like, what the sales contract looks like. So I thought showing it to you would be helpful. Okay, so this is a listing agreement. This will name the parties, name the properties. In number 1, we have to go over how realtors work. We actually have a agency disclosure that by law, it's a state law, realtors have to go over, and it talks about how we work, and we talk about agency and what that means, and basically it's who I'm working for. Am I working for the seller? Am I working for the buyer? Am I sitting on the fence? So that's one conversation that we have. Obviously, we price the property, and whatever commission is agreed upon, we fill in here. Then down on page 2, we normally fill in what we're offering out for other realtors to bring their buyers. Generally, that's half of it. And we talk about what happens when a buyer puts down earnest money, which lets you know that they're serious. We'll, of course, want to put a sign on the property if applicable. Owner's duty and broker's duty. So broker's duty, it's my duty as a realtor to do everything I can to get the property sold. What I normally say at number 7 is, I can't knock them on the head and drag them in the door either. So I do everything I can, but I can't knock them on the head and drag them in the door. Number 8 is the owner's duty, which is basically to let us show the property during reasonable times. So if it's vacant land, it makes it really easy. If it's a vacant house, it makes it really easy. If you live there, then we talk about showing instructions and, make sure that that works for you. 9 and 10 is the property disclosure. So in most cases, the homeowner has to fill out a property disclosure, and that's where you tell the buyer the good, the bad, the ugly, so they don't come back and sue you one day, because nobody wants to get sued. So we go over that. Taxes are normally prorated to the date of closing. Being that we live in the foothills of the mountains, honestly, Coastal Tidelands Wetlands Act doesn't apply to us here. Now, if we were on the coast, it's a different story. Number 13, you will have an option to choose option 1, where you're part of the MLS and everybody, can see you. Number 2 is just where the brokerage that you're hiring has the right to market you to their people. So that is a conversation that you will have with the agent. Generally, I choose option 1 because I want to get it out there and generate the largest price possible for my homeowners. But a lot of realtors choose the option down below. Generally, we put the home on a lot box. If there's other offers, I encourage other offers. I like backup offers. I think that gives the homeowner a lot of leverage. Marketing the property after accepted offers. Basically, we don't continue spending money running ads after you go under contract. We don't get together as a bunch of realtors and talk about commissions. That's illegal. You agree to maintain the property and cut the grass while it's listed. Once we get a buyer, we'll enter into an agreement to sell. If you were built before 1978, we may have to fill out a lead paint addendum, and that's just notifying the buyer that they can have some paint flaked off and have it tested. So that's another conversation. Mediation is if something were to happen, we agree to sit down and talk about it rather than running out and hiring lawyers. We practice fair housing. A fax is as good as an original. Got the right to enforce everything in here. Number 25, if there's any sex offenders or criminals in the area, it's not our responsibility to tell the buyer about that. It's their responsibility to do their research. 26 and 27 are new. Basically, if you have any surveillance or you're taking photos of people coming and going from your property, depending on how that's filled out, the broker may or may not disclose that to the other party. So one thing I can tell you, if you are working with a realtor, one thing we tell all our clients is, when you're going into somebody else's house, you don't know if you're being surveilled or not. So just make sure you don't say anything that you wouldn't want them to hear. Especially if it's, oh my God, I love this house, I'll pay full price. I mean, your negotiating power goes down to nothing when they see that. So that's what a listing agreement looks like. Then a offer, an agreement to buy, again, starts out naming the parties. It'll tell who each realtor works for. Is the buyer a client or a customer? Is the seller a client or a customer? What the offer is, the property that the offer is being made on, when you want to close, how much earnest money you're going to put down. We normally have a conversation about this, and since it's in bold, it means it's really important. But basically, if there's a dispute over the earnest money, then we just can't give one or the other parties the earnest money. We have to either wait until y'all agree, the buyer and the seller agree who gets the money, or a court, a competent jurisdiction, tells us what to do with that. We just can't willy-nilly write a check because we like you better. Transaction cost. This is where basically it says the buyer will pay their closing costs, the seller will pay their closing cost. Sometimes you'll see a number filled in here, and that's where the buyer's asking the seller to pay some of their closing cost. And then, that's popular in that that's less money the buyer would have to bring to the closing table. It helps them get their loan. So I routinely tell sellers not to freak out about that, because it just is a means to an end. It's a way to get that deal done. So financing, I like to know what type of financing they're getting, because some of the government, FHA, VA, they're a little more strict than conventional. So we go over that. So the next paragraph, paragraph 8, is a huge paragraph, the repair procedure. So the whole repair thing is a big deal. So with the repair procedure, it's seller friendly. generally, but it gives the seller peace of mind that they only have to consider making repairs to 9 systems. And those 9 systems are the heating, air, electrical, plumbing, water supply, wastewater, roof-free leaks, any environmental concerns to make sure it's structurally sound. So that's all the seller has to consider with the repair procedure. Now, if the buyer makes an offer and they choose due diligence will give them a time frame to have their inspections. And during that time frame, they've got to conduct the inspections, ask the seller to fix certain things, and there's no limit on what they can ask for. Proceed under a renegotiated contract or back out. So it's different than the repair procedure. Then the third way is just plain old as is. Again, you don't see that a whole lot just because, it can be kind of scary. People, want to make sure they're not getting stuck with something, a lemon, if you will. 9 says you can have it re-inspected. 10 says it has to appraise, or does not. 11 talks about the termite letter and if it's contingent upon a clear termite letter or not. Each, checky box means something. 12 says we recommend the buyer get a survey, a title exam, insurance. 13 says that if something were to contractually be done after closing, it survives closing. So if, let's say, there's a window on order, but it's not here yet, it's still got to be done because it's part of the contract. 14 is if the buyer wants a home warranty. 15 is if there is a fire or a casualty of some kind. If there, were to be a house fire or a tree blew down, either party has the right to back out or continue on. 16 describes if a seller's disclosure is available. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. If it's a new house, the builder doesn't have to fill one out. If it's a foreclosed house, they don't have to fill one out because they don't know anything about the house. Lead paint, if you were built before 1978, that might come into play. Sex offender criminal information. Again, it lets the parties know that the brokers are not responsible and the buyer, where they can get information on those things. 19, trust account. So their earnest money, whatever they put down, can be held in an interest-bearing or a non-interest-bearing trust account. So that's something that not like anybody's going to get rich on that little bit that's going to be held for so long. 20, if the seller is not a resident of South Carolina, then the closing attorney could withhold some of their gain. Basically, South Carolina wants to make sure they're filing their taxes. So if your seller is a resident of South Carolina, 20 doesn't mean anything. 21 just says that this is a binding agreement. Everything is within the 4 walls of this contract. There's not any handshake deals. That if it's not on this paper, doesn't exist. Adjustments, everything's going to be prorated. Default says if either party doesn't do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, it could be held in default and maybe get sued. Mediation says, everybody agrees to sit down and talk about things rather than running out and hiring lawyers. 25, non-reliance clause. Basically, it says you are entering into this agreement freely. Nobody's forcing you to sign it. Broker's disclaimer is basically, we're real estate brokers. We're not home inspectors. We are not AC people. We're real estate brokers. And 27 also says, we're getting paid out of this. Attachments and other contingencies. So let's say you had a house to sell and it was contingent upon that house selling. There's a form for that, and I forget the number, but each form has a number. And this, if you had that contingency, we would put that form number in here. Notice and delivery is just how how we talk to each other contractually. Let's see, 31's expiration of the offer, and that's really it. And the signatures, and then that tells who the realtors are. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I know that was a lot. Contracts can, get hairy, and everyone's different. There's not any exact way to do it. But I hope that shed a little light on things. Unfortunately, we've got a lot more paperwork that we do, and I wish it were just those few pages, but there's more. It's not scary though, and we're here to help. So if you enjoyed this discussion, again, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Reach out to us if you need us, and I hope this was a good resource for you. Thanks so much.